Hello, it's Elizabeth Busby here, and welcome to Discerning Marriage. Today, we are going to be answering one of your questions that was submitted on Instagram. I love these, you guys. The question is, are there situations where the Lord would reveal to you who your future spouse is? And I'm assuming what this question means is like where the Lord would be like, it's this person. The short answer to that question is yeah. Yeah, it happened with Joseph in the Bible when he sent the angel Gabriel and told him he still needed to marry Mary. It happened with Louis and Zelly, Martin, Therese's parents, St. Therese's parents. If you read the story of their like romantic discerning marriage love story, they were walking on a bridge, like opposite directions. And as Louis and passed Zelly heard a voice that said, he is the one that I have chosen for you, or something to that effect. So it does happen. However, it is very, 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 very rare, and I would not wait for that in your situation. Maybe you're going to be one of those people, very rare people in salvation history, for whom the choice of your spouse is so critical to all of salvation that God sends an archangel to tell you the plan. Probably not, but maybe, okay? I'm not going to sit here and say no because the Lord has done it before. It's very rare. Maybe you're going to be that next category of people like Louis and Zelly where the Lord puts on the person's heart, you need to wait for them. That's a little bit more common, but it's still super unlikely. And what I find is people hear these stories and are like, oh man, that must be how God wants to communicate this to me. Like I should really wait for that. And then they're going on dates or they're not going on dates or whatever. And they don't hear this like, burr, 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 and so then they think this isn't who God has for me and I need to just break up with them and I need to keep waiting. And the reality is for the vast majority of people, there is no number I can tag to this because there's no research on this, obviously, and there never will be, I'm sure. But a lot of people, I'll just put it that way, God wants you to use your free will. Let me get into this a little bit because this is a really important piece of Christian theology that it's important that you understand it. We are different from the animals in that we have reason and intellect, right? Like your dog, Bo, is not deciding that he wants to mate with your dog, Buttercup, because Buttercup's strawberry blonde fur is like perfect and he loves it. That's not how animals work, right? Humans, on the other hand, have the gift of reason and have the gift of intellect to make decisions, and then they have the will to choose them, right? Very different from the animals. And that's one of the ways that we're created in the image of God, right? We have that reason in a way that the animals don't have it. It brings God glory when you use your freedom. It does. He wants you to. He loves your freedom. Ultimately, the gift of our freedom is meant to be given back to him in love, right? Ideally, amazingly. And so it's reasonable that you want to understand what his will is for you. And the fact is that there are going to be a lot of good choices. For the vast majority of people, there are going to be lots of good choices. Now that lots of good choices option is going to be narrowed down by the people who are actually available when you are available, right? In the same space that you're available in, or willing to travel at least, and the same time you're available, right? Like if two people would be a really good fit, but one of them got married and then 10 years later, the other one was able to get married for whatever reason, like, okay, well then they weren't actually a good fit for each other because the timing didn't work out, right? There are so many factors that would determine who is a good fit. But for a lot of people, there are going to be many choices in a given point in time when they're discerning marriage that would be a good fit for them. And the Lord can make something beautiful out of any of those choices. Now, there are going to be some people who would be a better fit for you than others. But if there's not abuse in the relationship, then I am of the opinion that anybody can make a valid, happy marriage with anybody else, right? Abuse aside. Because what it takes to actually have a marriage is the choice to honor your vows, giving yourself freely, totally, faithfully, and fruitfully to the other person, and the other person giving themselves freely, totally, faithfully, and fruitfully back. And the two of you, with all of your integrity, committing to honor those vows and pursue that marriage through the course of your lifetime, right? So there are a lot of people that you could do that with. And frankly, there are a lot of people you could be happy with in doing that because a lot of that experience of happiness comes from choices that we make that set ourselves up for happiness. There is, of course, the supernatural grace of joy, which is a fruit of the Holy Spirit. But if you stay in a state of grace, you are eligible, if you will, for the fruit of the Spirit, which is joy. But that experience of happiness, so much of that is oriented around the choices that you make physically, nutritionally, with the people you surround yourself with how you fill your mind, how you fill your time, what you choose to allow yourself to dwell on. I mean, I could go on and on and on. There are so many things that contribute to this. But when it comes down to who you are going to choose, looking at your options, the options that are presented to you when you're in a place where you're ready to start dating because you want to get married, and you look at the people available to you in that space, you choose the best one. If they choose you back, you two date and you figure out, if you're compatible and if you want to be together and if there is this hope and potential for rich happiness and rich intimacy. And then you make your choice, and the Lord honors that. Of course, He is going to help you to see through your well-formed conscience which person would be a better choice than another one. But it is very rare that the Lord would come out and be like, you need to marry this person. Even in the case of Lewis and Zelly, like he told her what he wanted, but she didn't have to make the choice. I mean, that's always the case, right? Even in the case of Joseph and the archangel, he could have said no, but he didn't. He didn't want to, but he could have, right? The Lord wants our freedom. But it is so rare, the core of this is that it is so rare that God would just straight up tell you who it is, because He values your freedom so much. If you are wanting Him to tell you, go ahead and ask Him. Maybe you'll be given that special supernatural grace. But in order for you to hear that grace, there are two things that need to be going on in your life. One, you need to be in a state of grace, which means you need to be rejecting sin as much as you can, particularly mortal sin, working to strive toward virtue, receiving the sacrament of confession regularly so that your soul is nice and squeaky clean and receptive to hearing what God has to say. And then number two, it's making sure that you have an active prayer life. Make sure that prayer life includes Mass, because that's when we become the closest to Jesus that we will ever be on this side of heaven, right? With the Eucharist. And make sure that you are cultivating your day around space and time for prayer, and not just the kind of prayer where you tell God what you want, but the kind of prayer where you listen. Because maybe He does want to tell you, maybe you're one of those people who's going to get that special grace. But if you don't ever prepare yourself to hear and receive from Him, then you are never going to hear Him, because He could be talking and you're not listening, and you don't know the voice of Him in your heart. You don't know what that sounds like. You don't know that still small voice is Him. And so you miss it. So the short answer to that question, I gave you the long answer to the question, but the short answer to the question is, yeah, sometimes He does it, but it's probably not going to happen to you. And there's beauty in that. He's going to bless your choice and your vow. Don't wait around for Him to say something, because He wants you to hear the promptings of the Spirit that are not quite so like dee, and then choose what you want, right? Augustine says, love and then do what you will. Form yourself into the heart of Christ and then choose what you want, and the Lord will bless that. And if you stay close to Him through the sacraments and you stay close to Him in prayer, you will have a beautiful, fruitful marriage with the person that you choose. All right. I hope that was helpful. Until next time, stay close to the heart of Jesus and be not afraid. Bye.